I'm not a man given to emotion. Instead, I view them as mere data points, indicators from your nervous system that many misconstrue as orders. Fear signifies potential peril, anger suggests a boundary has been violated, love implies someone is crucial for your well-being. However, these signals aren't directives, they're information. And when wielded judiciously, this data becomes potent. I am Thorne, a cybersecurity architect. My expertise lies in engineering safeguards for Fortune 500 entities against unseen threats, identifying vulnerabilities prior to adversaries, and foreseeing human behavior because it's pattern-driven, prone to error, and frequently underestimates the silent ones. For nearly a decade, I was bound to Serafina, her radiant smile captured on Instagram and her meticulously managed life. She boasted over 200,000 followers under the impression she was living the ideal life, a charming spouse, an attractive child, and a minimalist home equipped with a rarely used chef's kitchen. Her feed was a gallery of filters and carefully chosen angles. I often served as a prop in her images. I recognized my role, accepting it because beneath the act, I held faith that there was sincerity. Most importantly, there was Maddie, our daughter who turned 4. She embodied genuineness, curiosity, incapable of dishonesty. Her laughter resonated from a place pure and genuine, while her tears were real. Maddie hadn't yet learned the world often rewards pretense over authenticity. I would have remained for her sake eternally. I would have fulfilled my part in Serafina's content, attended charity events, posed for cameras, and then returned to my office to focus on work that truly mattered. I would have endured the superficial marriage and its feigned affection, as any time with Maddie was priceless. However, an irregularity occurred. It was a Thursday evening in October. As someone who reviews logs regularly, not due to suspicion but habit, I was going through our smart home logs. Our house was equipped with numerous connected devices, thermostats, lights, locks, cameras, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide sensors, all feeding data into a self-customized central hub. Most people install smart systems without examining the data, yet I scrutinize everything. The security system had been deactivated at 8:47 p.m. and reactivated at 11:52 p.m., leaving a 3-hour gap unexplained. As I scrolled back through previous week's logs, this anomaly stood out. Every Thursday at around the same time and duration, the pattern repeated with Serafina requiring manual override using her personal code. Initially, I suspected someone had breached her code to gain access while we were sleeping, not infidelity. Over 2 hours, I scrutinized potential entry points until I realized my thinking was influenced by my cybersecurity expertise, not marital concerns. Upon examining GPS data from Serafina's phone, I found that although she believed location sharing was disabled, her phone's diagnostic system still connected to cell towers, and our family plan granted me access to carrier data unknown to her. Every Thursday evening, her phone traveled 12 minutes northeast to the luxury condominium complex called Meridian. I pondered this information for a considerable period, as the Meridian was where Cale Morrison resided. Due to Serafina's social media engagement with him, following him on Instagram, excessively liking his posts, and briefly mentioning him at a gathering before quickly changing topic upon noticing my reaction, I deduced that she was involved with Cale. Cale, a fitness influencer known for his physically impressive physique, attained either through extensive gym hours or performance-enhancing substances, shared shirtless transformation videos and motivational slogans about perseverance and progress. His content was shallow, his captions' grammatical errors abounded, yet he amassed 3 million followers who seemed to find it motivating. The revelation did not prompt me to throw objects, shout, or cry. Instead, I remained in my office, assessing the situation as a threat, identifying vulnerabilities, evaluating risks, and deciding on an appropriate response. The affair itself held little importance, Serafina, and I had not shared intimacy for over a year. Our marriage was essentially a business contract that she no longer pretended to uphold. If she felt compelled to seek affirmation from a man incapable of spelling perseverance, as stated in his bio, that was her choice. However, upon reviewing the internal security footage on Thursday nights, everything shifted. Maddie was at home. Serafina was leaving our 4-year-old daughter unattended for 3 hours every week, while she drove to her lover's apartment. I watched the recording from the previous Thursday. At 8:43 p.m., Serafina entered Maddie's room with an iPad and a small bottle of children's Benadryl. She handed Maddie the tablet and 2 pills, instructed her to stay in bed and watch her shows, and locked the door from the outside, effectively confining a 4-year-old alone in a bedroom. unsupervised in an empty house. Meanwhile, the baby monitor app on her phone disconnected automatically whenever she drove beyond the range of our Wi-Fi network. Serafina recognized this predicament. She had deemed it acceptable to endure 3 hours of silence from a drugged child as a trade-off for time with her partner. As I observed my daughter via our security system's thermal imaging, she appeared as a tiny warm figure in a bed, isolated within a dark household, while her mother reveled in laughter and consumed wine at the Meridian. For the first time in maybe a decade, I felt authentic anger, but I refrained from acting on it. Anger is information, not an order. Therefore, I formulated a plan. The immediate response would have been confrontation followed by divorce proceedings. I could present the evidence to Serafina, demand she cease, and initiate custody battles. However, my interactions with numerous divorce attorneys over the years had shown me how this would unfold. Serafina would deny the allegations, assert the footage was tampered with, engage a public relations firm to shape her story, and spend 2 years portraying me as a domineering husband attempting to seize custody of our child. She is attractive and compassionate. I am affluent and analytical. Public opinion wouldn't side with me, and family courts frequently align with public sentiment. Worse still, an adept lawyer could portray a single instance of negligence as an isolated mistake. Serafina would receive parenting lessons, a reprimand, and joint custody. She would continue to have unrestricted access to Maddie, leaving me powerless to intervene legally. I required evidence not just of an affair, but of a consistent pattern of endangerment so extreme that no judge could grant her custody. I needed Serafina's self-destruction to be apparent and unquestionable. Moreover, I had to ensure my innocence when this happened. For the following 6 weeks, I recorded every incident. I added hidden cameras throughout the house, including one in Maddie's room focused on the door. I documented Serafina's Thursday night routine, which included Benadryl administration, securing the door, and 3 hours of solitude. Every file was time-stamped with cryptographic authentication to prevent them being labeled as false. Gaining access to Cal's apartment required caution. The building had a smart lock system that I managed to compromise. A flaw in the manufacturer's firmware enabled me to duplicate Cal's digital key within Bluetooth range. One day, when Cal was filming a workout video at his gym, I entered his apartment and concealed a camera inside the living room smoke detector. This action was likely illegal, but the footage would not be used in court. Instead, it would only be shown to a Child Protective Services officer during an emergency welfare check, when legality mattered less than immediate context. Collected data including footage, GPS information, credit card transactions, and cell tower logs. Constructed a dossier detailing 6 weeks of child abandonment incidents, each entry properly dated, cross-referenced, and authenticated. Patiently waited for an opportune Thursday. An opportunity emerged in early December as my company was invited to present at a cybersecurity conference in Tokyo. I had previously declined this offer but hadn't informed Serafina. During dinner on Tuesday evening, I mentioned the conference incidentally, said that I needed to travel to Tokyo on Thursday, not lifting my gaze from my phone. The conference would last until Wednesday next week, meaning I'd be away for approximately a week. Serafina's face displayed an emotion I can describe as eagerness masked as sorrow. She expressed her concern about being without me for a whole week. "Maddie will miss you," she said. I promised to call every night for her bedtime, watching as Serafina evaluated the situation. A week without supervision, no need to wait until Thursday. She wasn't bound by 3-hour visits either. She could visit Cale whenever and for as long as she desired. "We'll find a way," she said, reaching over the table to touch my hand in what seemed like an affectionate gesture. "I have faith you will," I thought when Thursday arrived. I pretended to pack my suitcase, bid goodbye to Maddie at the door, and loaded my luggage into an Uber. Serafina waved from the porch with Maddie in her arms, epitomizing a supportive wife. The Uber drove me to the airport. I entered the terminal, waited 20 minutes before exiting through another gate where a rental car was waiting under a false name. I drove to a residential street 2 blocks from our home and parked. Then I opened my laptop and watched. At 7:30 p.m., Serafina's phone received a text from Cale. I had been mirroring his messages for weeks through a compromised backup. At the gym, he injured his back and couldn't drive. He requested if she could visit him instead. Immediately agreeing, Serafina arrived at 8:15 p.m. as seen on a concealed camera. She delivered Maddie to her room, handed her an iPad and Benadryl, the usual routine for Thursdays. Serafina informed Maddie that her mother had temporarily left and requested she stay in bed and behave nicely. "Daddy's on a flight," she explained, instructing Maddie not to call him but rather watch shows and sleep. She promised Maddie that her mother would return soon. Locking the door, Serafina departed downstairs, checked her reflection in the hallway mirror, collected her purse, and exited. The security system was deactivated at 8:22 p.m., while her car left the driveway at 8:24 p.m. At 8:36 p.m., her phone connected to a cell tower near the Meridian. By 8:41 p.m., the camera in Cale's living room captured Serafina entering his house with a bottle of wine. I chose to wait 45 minutes before making sure she had settled and was comfortable. To provide her a chance to unwind, to chuckle, to disregard the fact that she had a daughter at home alone and confined in a locked room, I decided to act at 9:30 p.m. by accessing our home automation system remotely. All smart devices in our house were controlled through a central hub I had constructed myself, which also managed our carbon monoxide detectors, equipped with a lesser-known feature. They could be manually triggered for testing, sending a false reading that would activate the system's emergency protocol automatically. Pressing a button on my laptop initiated this process. Simultaneously, every carbon monoxide detector in our house started blaring an alarm. The smart home system recognized a life-threatening situation and enacted its pre-programmed response, triggering alerts to the fire department, police department, and monitoring service. The thermal sensors detected a human presence in Maddie's bedroom, a small, warm body, potentially trapped in a room with a locked door during a possible gas leak. In less than 8 minutes, emergency response vehicles sped past my stationary car with flashing lights. I stood rooted 2 blocks away, unwilling to intervene or pursue, as firefighters broke down Maddie's front door. Groggy from Benadryl and tearful, she was found alone in her locked bedroom. The firefighters checked for carbon monoxide poisoning but found none. It turned out to be a false alarm due to a faulty sensor. However, their focus soon shifted to the perplexing question: why was a 4-year-old child left unattended in a locked room with no adults at home? Immediately contacting Child Protective Services, they took action at 9:47 p.m. Meanwhile, Serafina's phone chimed an alert from her security monitoring service. "Emergency breach at residence, fire department present, please respond promptly." Her face paled as she snatched her purse and hastily exited without a word. 12 minutes that seemed like an eternity passed as I followed her on her phone, racing towards home. Arriving at 10:03 p.m., our street was aglow with emergency lights. Neighbors stood in bathrobes on their porches, watching the unfolding scene. A fire truck barricaded the driveway, police cars parked along the curb, and Officer Vance stood on our front lawn, cradling Maddie in a blanket. Serafina stepped out of her car, delivering an Oscar-worthy performance. She sprinted towards Maddie, tears flowing freely down her face. Collapsing to her knees before Officer Vance, she begged for our daughter, explaining that she had been gone merely 20 minutes. In reality, she stopped at a gas station on her way home to procure a bottle of children's Tylenol from her purse, pretending it was medicine from an all-night pharmacy. Sprinted out for medication, she choked back sobs. She was peaceful, sleeping, hadn't considered, wouldn't abandon her, never. Officer Vance, a seasoned veteran, encountered various forms of parental deceit. Yet Serafina appeared extraordinarily authentic, and the Tylenol bottle seemed to align with her narrative. I could discern his hesitation, assessing if this was ordinary negligence or a justifiable oversight. That's when I emerged from the shadows. I had parked the rental car on another street and walked towards the edge of the chaotic scene. I stayed concealed behind the police barrier, blending in as just another concerned neighbor observing the commotion, until the perfect moment arrived. Serafina spotted me before Officer Vance did. Her countenance shifted through several emotions in quick succession. Puzzlement because I was supposed to be aboard a flight, dread due to my presence endangering her alibi, and finally something icy as she discerned she wasn't yet privy to the extent of my knowledge. "Thorne," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I assumed you were." I made my way to Officer Vance without responding. "I'm Thorne Whitmore," I stated coolly. "I'm the child's father. My flight was delayed, so I came home." I offered information useful for your investigation, presenting him with a tablet. Officer Vance examined the screen, his professional demeanor transforming into something more severe. Split-screen video on the tablet showed, on the left, our hidden camera footage timestamped at 8:24 p.m., capturing Serafina leaving our house. On the right, live footage from Cal's apartment at the Meridian, showing Serafina drinking wine and laughing at 8:45 p.m. for the past 90 minutes. That was her location, I informed him. That was where she visited her lover each Thursday night for at least 6 weeks, leaving our daughter unattended. I have proof of every instance. I gave him a folder with printed GPS data, cell tower logs, and credit card receipts. The latest receipt was from a gas station near the Meridian, dated 43 minutes ago. Serafina had filled up gas before driving to Cal's apartment. There was no pharmacy visit mentioned, nor any fever recorded. Instead, evidence suggested Serafina had given her child Benadryl and locked her in a room, allowing her to spend 3 hours with her lover. Officer Vance examined Serafina. His sympathetic expression disappeared. "Ma'am," he said, "I require your presence." At this, Serafina's composed front cracked. She began to scream, not the theatrical sobbing from earlier, but genuine distress. She accused me of hacking and fabricating evidence to take her child away. She attempted to attack me and needed restraint by 2 officers. Maddie started crying once more, hiding her face in Officer Vance's shoulder to avoid her mother's emotional turmoil. Officer Vance requested a statement from Mr. Whitmore as they drove Serafina away in a police car due to charges of child endangerment and neglect. With her documented history, bail would likely be set high, and given her resources and motivation, she might not even get bail at all. Officer Vance then offered emergency temporary custody of the daughter, Maddie, to Mr. Whitmore for that night. He asked if he had a safe alternative residence, to which Mr. Whitmore confirmed, stating he has a fully equipped apartment used for work that is suitable for a child, as he had prepared it 8 weeks earlier with Maddie's favorite items and essentials. Officer Vance acknowledged this and handed over Maddie, who was finally settling down. She enclosed her arms around my neck and leaned her head on my shoulder, whispering, "Daddy." "Mommy is gone," she said. "I understand, sweetheart," I replied, "but Daddy's here now, always will be." I took her to the rental car, securing her in the seat I had bought and installed that morning. I drove towards the apartment I had arranged specifically for this instance. The emergency lights receded in the distance as Serafina headed for the police station. Her followers would find out about her arrest when they woke up. Serafina's polished image was shattered. The divorce process moved quickly. Serafina's lawyer attempted to argue entrapment, but there was nothing to ensnare. I had not forced Maddie to be left alone by Serafina. I had not compelled her to drug our daughter. I had not made her drive to her lover's apartment while her child slumbered in a locked room. Instead, I set up circumstances that allowed her real self to surface, and then recorded the exposure. In the court's decision, full custody was granted to me. Serafina was given limited visitation rights under the condition she completes parenting courses, therapy, and drug screenings. However, she breached these terms within 3 months, leading to the loss of her visitation privileges entirely. Since that fateful evening on the lawn, I've had no contact with her. Maddie is now 6 years old. She recalls little about her mother, which I view as a kindness. She understands that Mommy made some mistakes and had to leave, and she knows beyond doubt that Daddy adores her immensely. She knows our house is secure. She will never be left alone in a room, and I'll always be there for her when she needs me. At times, late at night, I ponder the instant I clicked that button on my computer, setting off the carbon monoxide alarm and causing everything to fall into place. In a different scenario, I faced off against Serafina, leading to a shouting match and a contentious divorce where she was granted shared custody but continued to endanger our daughter during her visitation times. Instead, I took another route. I allowed her self-destruction. Some might label that manipulation, others coldness, but I see it as protection. As a cybersecurity architect, I pinpoint weaknesses and eliminate threats. Serafina posed a danger to my daughter, so I eliminated the threat using my unassailable weapon, truth. She believed herself more intelligent, thought I was too logical to observe, too apathetic to care, too reticent to act. She underestimated me because I didn't display my emotions like she did. However, here's the truth about silent individuals. We are always observing, always analyzing, and when we ultimately take action, the game is already lost. You simply aren't aware of it yet. Now I have Maddie with full custody. My daughter is growing up securely and lovingly, shielded from individuals exploiting her for their displays of joy. Serafina's past includes a criminal history and a dwindling social media presence, haunted by the Thursday nights that led to her downfall. I'm not riddled with guilt. Instead, I feel like a father who took the necessary steps to safeguard his child. Emotions are information. My information indicated Maddie's worth was immeasurable, and this remains true today. Most parents might be unaware, But in the United States, there is no defined age at which a child can be left alone. Only 14 states have specific laws, and these ages vary from 6 to 14 years old. Avery's residence. However, it is crucial to understand that nearly all child welfare experts concur that leaving any child younger than 6, even for 4 hours, constitutes neglect. In the narrative of Thorne, Maddie was 4 years old, which signifies potential endangerment. Approximately 25% of children in America encounter some form of abuse or neglect throughout their lives. This statistic is from NCBI. Neglect, however, is the predominant type of child maltreatment, constituting nearly 75% of all such cases. The National Children's Alliance further clarifies that, while duration may not always be a defining factor in the law, the repercussions often manage to do so.